This is all about YouTube and view and subscriber rankings, but the question on screen, and you'll see why in a moment, is would the 5,000th fastest sprinter in the world run the 100 meters in 16 minutes? So the answer might be, don't be ridiculous, of course it would be less than 16 minutes, but what are we actually talking about? And getting straight down to things, if you have a look at Social Blade, which is a ranking statistics site for YouTube and other places, you'll see on screen at the moment there is nothing on here on the top lists when I go to it, and I'm talking about 5,000 here, and that is top 50, top 100, top 500, but nothing about 5,000. So it was actually by accident a little while ago that I found that Social Blade do actually rank up to 5,000, and if you do a site search you can see it's actually top 5,000, most viewed and most subscribed. So what's that actually mean to us? And we can start to have a look by saying that if we can look at the most viewed of the YouTube channels, and this is something that lists from 1 all the way down to 5,000. And at the moment you can see that if I scroll it down, that the 5,000th, bear with me 1 second, there it is a channel down here that has 363 million views. The 5,000th on the planet. If you look at the very first, number 1, T-Series, 37.5 billion video views. Now look at all those numbers, and then you think, well, okay, what's the next step? Shall we chart them? Okay, what we can do also is look at the most subscribed in a similar way, although we could, some people might ignore the first few, in other words 1, 2, 3, and look at the most subscribed at say 100 million or 62 million, who knows what. If we look at the most subscribed, and just keep your eyes on the sub channel, which is the second number over, and then we can go down to the 5,000th to make a little bit of sense out of it. Nearly there, nearly there. Talk amongst yourselves. Here we go. 5,000th is 1.2 million subscribers. So the next one we can go along and have a look to make sense of it, and say that if we took that Social Blade information and we said the first one in terms of views was, and this is, I've done it in millions, so you've got to read this as 37.4, which is at 37.4 billion. Then we go all the way down, and then I just said that we've got 363 million. What that actually looks like in terms of a chart is this, and this is the meat of this talk, shall we say, and that is that something which I'm trying to make sense of myself is, what does it mean when you have the number 1 channel on the planet in terms of views at this, which is this big blue line, and then you go down to the 100th and it drops and it drops and drops and drops. So when you get down to the 5,000th, it's down here. Now what I'm trying to make sense of is when I go down to also look at the subscribers, it does the same thing. You've got a huge amount of subscribers for the first 100 channels, and then it drops off. So those are the two figures, shall we say, that I've actually looked at, meaning view rank and views in millions, and also subscribers in millions. The important part looking at it is to say that with my other series called YouTube and Me, the 1 in a billion, I've actually gone down with a 37-minute talk looking at various bits and bobs to look at one example here. Bear in mind we were talking about the top 5,000. I calculated, and again, huge errors, do it amongst yourselves, check it out, that if you are ranked in terms of views about 20,000 or above, you may be able to make, through advertising alone, a UK average wage at YouTube. But the thing that I'm trying to get at is that if you look at somebody, shall we say here, who is number 1 and then 100th, and then you go all the way down here. I'm talking about being practical in real life here. If you are the 5,000th person behind number one, is it really representative that you've got such a little tiny dot of data compared to the number one? And I was trying to, and this is no way in any finished thought, I tried to come along and said, okay, how can I compare this to anything else, whether it's right or wrong? And I said, okay, let's Google 100-meter world record. And I found that Usain Bolt ran it in 2009 at 9.58 seconds. And I left it there. And then I thought to myself, and I went back and I thought, okay, you've got this view ranking going on here of the first channel who's got, the number one in the world at 37,000 million or 37 billion views, and the 5,000th on the planet has 363, which is actually 103 times more on number one than 5,000. So in other words, if you were 5,000, if I wanted to be number one and I happened to be, in terms of views, 363 million, I would have to increase my views by 103 to be the number one spot. Or if I was talking about subscribers and I was the 5,000th and I wanted to be the biggest number one in terms of subscribers at YouTube in the world, I would have to up my subscriber rate by 78. And what I'm trying to get at here is, if we try to look at something, is that representative of other parts of life? So for an example, when I said about 9.58, if I times that, and this is where I'm going now, to say, let me just go to this one. No, not that one. Yeah, let's stick with it. Oh, sorry, let's stick with it. What I said is Usain Bolt in 2009 ran at 9.58, but the person who came second was just 1.36% more. In other words, it wasn't hugely behind. It wasn't minutes behind. It was just a couple of seconds behind. Then I said, okay, that's fair enough. What would the 5,000th person sprinter in the world run the 100 metres at? Well, I said, okay, and I googled this, the average time to run 100 metres. And what I actually got down to it when I looked at it with this particular article that was written in 2012 by The Telegraph, is I came down and I said, well, if you jogged the 100 metres, you might come in at about 27 to 34 seconds. If you sprinted it, you might take about 13 to 14 seconds. If you actually walked the 100 metres at an average walking pace of 3 miles an hour, you would actually take 1 minute and 14 seconds. What I'm trying to get to is none of those are, in the world population, like 16 minutes. So the way I got there is I said Usain Bolt's 9.58 times by 103, because that's what I said about the YouTube rankings, and then divided by 60 to get the minutes, which was 16 minutes. What I'm trying to get to is how YouTube works compared to other places. And one of the ones I thought about is the comparison of the leading car companies. Would you expect, say, in the United Kingdom, America, I don't care, any country in the world, would you expect that the number one car manufacturer would have, shall we say, twice as many or even 100 times as many cars on the roads as its next competitor at number two? And if I have a look down at the bottom here where it says December 17, you'll see that they're quite close. Ford have got 10.19%, and just behind that at number two is Volkswagen at 10.06. They're all quite close. So YouTube must be working, just to go back and have a look at this graph slightly differently in terms of its views. And again, I'm not privy to this, the private information publicly. If you're talking about the top 100 channels or the top whatever in the world, they are hugely more popular or got more views than even the 5,000th. Bearing in mind, if you went back and you said that to actually get just to be monetized, you would have to have 3.5 million or so to be ranked as a view rank. So let's leave it there, because what I'm trying to understand, and this is why it's part lesson, part just discussion, and that is that if we looked on Wikipedia to look at the long tail, which is the power law ratio, something like that, is that you'd get a graph something like that, where you've got the popular stuff there. If you think of somebody selling, I don't know, cars, I was going to say, but probably not. You know, listening to music, maybe listening to YouTube, listening to, I don't know, buying stuff off of Amazon, you know, staple things from a food store like bread and milk or something. Would you expect that YouTube doesn't certainly look like that? Bear in mind, this example graph could be all of the products, and it could go down there for literally miles and miles and miles with this long tail. Let's leave it there, shall we? Because I'm getting to a level where things are getting complicated. I started it off, and I'll finish it as well, to say that would you expect the 5,000th fastest sprinter in the world to run the 100 meters in 16 minutes? And the answer would probably be definitely not. Bearing in mind that, you know, Usain Bolt did it in 9.58 seconds. If you times it by 103, you get this 16 minutes. It's ridiculous. But if you went through and you said 13-14 seconds to sprint it, 27 seconds to have a jog, or 74 seconds or a minute to walk it, what I'm trying to do is, a person could not reasonably make a car and share it like in a day. Yet a person could make a video and share it to the internet. In other words, on YouTube. Look, I've garbled on quite a lot in this session, but what I really want to do is take the public information of the YouTube statistics, and I want to see what is fair and reasonable about using YouTube to get views, get comments, get a discussion going, to make a few dollars. And sometimes you might find that you've got your hands in the air saying, wow, this is great, I really like it. Or the man in sorrow sitting on a chair going, this is crazy. This is crazy. Bearing in mind, if YouTube is a platform that you have to, say, be at, that could be 5 millionth, let's be honest, and you want to get to be bigger and better, or just got more attention, or whatever the situation is, more views, more subscribers. But is it reasonable to times it by 103? And I'm not going to lie, I'm at a position now where I'm thinking, do I even carry on with my channel, or do I just stop? Because my recent videos that I'm putting up are, they're not getting any views. What do I do? What do you do? I don't know.